Hey there, Dave Paulides, canammissing project, another copyrighted edition for our video page. And we're back in the silo. I gotta say that the hike up to Bear Creek Overlook, which was our last video about the update to the Barber Bullet case, that was a butt kicker. It was almost all uphill to an overlook that had an absolutely epic view. And it's too bad that the smoke was so bad, but couldn't do much about it. Couldn't do anything about it. I will tell you that in talking to Barbara's husband, Carl, really a great man. It was every time I meet a family person, family member of someone who's missing, it touches my soul in a way that I just can't quite explain. And there's, I can see the void in the person when I'm talking to him. And even though this was 14 years ago, the way he talked about her and the way he explained the situation, I don't forget these moments. I'll never forget them. And I was honored that Carl would speak with me. I also met Carl's son, John, really a good guy. And I appreciated the time in their residence very much. This is an update segment, special edition. The video that you just saw yesterday dealt with two people who disappeared in the wilderness. One was Anthony Elfalak, and another one was Jennifer Coleman. And we're going to update both those cases. Sometimes when I tape these, there are a couple days, we can't air them for a couple days because we get them backed up. But we're going to update both these cases. One of the things I want to talk to you about before I update both of these is the issue of electronics in relationship to missing cases. And what do I mean about that? Well, Angie and I were at a place a couple years ago called Green River Lakes, Wyoming. Look it up on a map. Green River Lakes, Wyoming. And the view up that valley from where the lake, the road stops going to the first lake, it's something almost out of Yosemite. The amount of granite and what you see when you look up the lake is stunning. We were there about a missing person case from the 1950s. And it was one of these cases that's always bothered me. I wrote about it. And we stopped and we got out and we walked up this mountain near where the description was this person was last seen. It was a young girl. And they found a pile of her clothes in this specific spot. And when we got up there, it just felt very odd. I cannot explain it. It just felt weird. And Angie takes out her camera to take a picture. And she took out her cell phone. It was just fully charged. And she goes, "Dave, come here." And you could see the battery run out right when we're standing there, just from full charge to nothing. You know, that's wild. That's wild. So we walk down a little bit more and we get to an area, and it's the most bones I've ever seen in a grassy area of wildlife in my life. There were probably 7 or 8 almost full skeletons of elk in this one probably quarter-acre pasture on the top of this mountain. Very weird. So I had a camera with me. I take out the camera to take a picture, and it says lens error. I've had this camera for 6 years. Never saw that before. So I take the battery out, put a new battery in, re-up it, try to take a picture, battery dies. So take that battery out, put the old battery in, recharge it again, take it out, lens error. Last chance. Take out my cell phone. I had about 80% charge. Try to take a picture. Completely goes to nothing within seconds. Can't take the picture. I've never had that happen since. It never happened before. And that camera with the lens error never happened again. It's a strange place, strange feeling. It was odd what we saw, and the electronic issues associated with it were exceedingly odd. Now, many of you know I've been a MUFON researcher for many years, and I read as much as I can about disappearances related with MUFON, and abductions are one of those things. Many abductees talk about complete electronics failure in and around them just prior to the abduction occurring. That's a fact. I've heard this hundreds of times. Sometimes they're in a car and they'll be driving down the road, the car's just fine, and it's kind of like it runs out of gas, but also the battery dies at the same time and everything fails. It's happened many times. So keep that in your hip pocket. Oftentimes even electronic batteries on watches fail. It's almost any type of electronics. And then in conjunction with that, many times the memory is lost of the abductee. Sometimes it's short term, sometimes it's long term, sometimes it's partial, sometimes it's everything. So think about that. Now, before I get too deep into why I talked to you about the electronics, I do want to talk to you about the disappearance of Jennifer. Jennifer from Glacier National Park. Her body was just found. She went missing on September 1st. She actually last contacted her parents by text on August 30th. She was going to go out and hike the area around Logan Pass. Her parents, what they did was they had a sheriff's deputy go out and do a welfare check on her campsite at a KOA campground in West Glacier. Well, they got there and they saw that nobody had been there and there were no dogs there. She had 2 dogs. Well, she had put them in a shelter, or not a shelter, put them in like doggy daycare while she went into the park because you can't take canines in the park. She parked her car at Logan Pass. So, she parked her car right here. This is part of Going to the Sun Road, which you needed a permit for this year up until Labor Day. Now, they believe that she was hiking this trail called the Highline Trail right here to a chalet. Gorgeous, gorgeous hike. Nothing real dangerous. But then there's also a hike that goes off in the other direction. Now, this parking lot is absolutely jam-packed on the day she arrived. But she parked her car and she went one of 2 directions. They weren't sure. Now, she is in the middle of the Continental Divide right here. In a very odd sort of wording, the National Park Service said that after 4 days of searching, they found her body in a very steep, rugged area of the Continental Divide. What does that tell you? Nothing. Didn't say what trail she was near. It didn't say anything clarifying. Did say that on Sunday, they couldn't retrieve her body because of high winds. The weather wasn't conducive to the helicopter, to Bear Air coming in and getting it. So, what happened? Very good question. That is the second young woman, to die in Montana in the last month, hiking alone, being found in a rocky boulder area. I don't care what you say, that's odd. It's very odd. So, this last weekend, we went into the Bear Creek overlook, and then we also, the next day, hiked up Bear Creek, which is at the bottom of that 3,000-foot canyon. And what we saw was disturbing. We saw a couple of lone females way back in the middle of nowhere, by themselves, hiking around, no gun. One incident, I didn't even see bear spray. And I don't know what it is, if ladies are just taking off by themselves now, but it bothers me just because of my knowledge base of what's happened in Montana in the last few weeks. And I wonder if people even understand what we're talking about. So, I was tempted to just stop these people on the trail and say, be real polite and say, hey, you know, hiking alone can be really dangerous. But then they probably think I was a kook because they didn't know who I was. And so I didn't do it, but I also doubt that any of these people even had a personal locator beacon. And I'm stunned every week how many people say I've never even heard of a personal locator beacon. So, all right, enough of the bandwagon here. The next case, I talked about it a couple days ago. Anthony Elfalak, 3 years old, missing September 3rd of this year. He's found September 6th, about 3.5 days later, in a rural home in New South Wales in Australia. This area of Australia, I've written about it many times. There have been many unusual disappearances in this region. The mom said that Anthony had never walked away from the home before. He was 3 years old. He was non-communicative and autistic. I have written about autistic people many times and how they disappear at a high level. She said that she turned her back on her boy for seconds, turned back around, he was missing. This is almost the exact wording of a boy named Alfred Beelarts who disappeared in Rocky Mountain National Park when his dad said he was standing right next to him. But there's also been dozens and dozens of others that have said the exact same thing. I turned around just a few seconds, boom, the person's gone. The parents of Anthony told the newspapers that they thought that their son was abducted. They said it soon. They said that there was some vehicle maybe associated that was in the area. Well, what a lot of people didn't know was in the yard, Anthony's dad had put a CCTV camera high up in a tree that monitored the activity in the yard. I never heard why he put it up, but it was a 650-acre piece of property way out in the middle of nowhere in the Hunter Valley and near a town called Putty, P-U-T-T-Y. So for 3 days, they have hundreds of people, police officers, working this crisscrossing helicopter with FLIR, flying the area everywhere. It probably was the most activity that mountain had ever seen. Orientation. This is Sydney. This is the Yango Valley Road where Anthony disappeared. This is Yango Valley National Park, right next to the location. It's a really, really gorgeous segment of Australia. FYI, I did an extensive case of the disappearance of a woman from this location in Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park, right next to this location. It's online as part of our channel. You could watch it. So, 3.5 days after he disappears, this is Anthony. 3.5 days after he disappears, helicopter's flying 500 feet from the house, 500 straight feet over the top of a mountain and down a cliff. Sitting in water next to a huge granite boulder is Anthony, playing in the water. This is the picture the helicopter, police helicopter took, and this is important. So on this side, you can't see it real well, but there's a giant granite boulder. He's leaning against it. He's wearing what looks like a white sweatshirt. And he's in, there's a little tiny stream comes down here, and he's sitting in a bowl of water right here. And he's kind of playing and drinking in the water. Anybody tell me why this might be important? Missing 411? Want to think about it for a second? Okay. So first of all, they had multiple canine teams looking for this boy for 3 days. They never picked up a scent. He's sitting in water. 2, sitting next to a boulder of granite. 3, the searchers said, and the family said, this area had been searched dozens and dozens of times. 4, he's autistic. 5, he can't talk. He's nonverbal. He can't explain what happened to him. Important. A lot of times it's loss of memory and the people can't explain. But in this instance, Anthony will never be able to explain what happened to him. Now, Anthony's godfather said that police saw the camera up in the tree, way up in the tree, higher than you and I could get it. We have to get a giant ladder. And said, hey, what's up there? And they said, oh, it's a camera. And he says, oh, can we just take it down and look at it? Sure. So they go up and they take the memory card out and they play it. And 2 hours before Anthony disappeared to 2 hours after he was gone, card is wiped clean. But the police say, and the father said, but there's also a cloud recording of this. They go in, they go through the account, 2 hours before, 2 hours afterwards, recording is wiped clean. How's that possible? And the police have not made any statements about this. It was the godfather of Anthony's that came forward and said, this is really unusual and you need to know. Damn right it's unusual. But you know, on Skinwalker Ranch, I know because I talked to people that have been there, they've had so many electrical issues over the years. What do I mean by that? They were watching a ridgeline one afternoon and they're looking through night vision. And they're both looking at a light on the ridge. And one person says this light opens up and they see something crawl out of the light and jump down. The other person right next to him looking at the same light never saw it. They said that's impossible. Well, they went up there, they found some tracks to prove something was there. But that's how well it was manipulated. Now, were the electronics manipulated? Were the people separated? What happened? There's also been many times where lights have gone out dozens of times where electronics that were fully charged went completely dead. And remember, I told you about Angie and I having the same experience with a phone and a camera. What am I getting at here? I'm getting at that electronics issues under the realm of certain investigators is not that unusual. It's paranormal and it's unexplainable, but it's not unheard of. Anthony's case is really important. I've said before at conferences, and I probably said them on videos, that it almost seems as though the victims that are picked many times can't explain or have their memories wiped and they can't describe. In Anthony's case, he has a condition where he's non-communicative. So if you took him for some reason, it would be fairly safe to understand that he would never tell anybody what happened. So you wouldn't have to worry about that. Now, he's found in water. Everyone knows that if you walk up a creek, you're not going to leave tracks, especially if there's rocks at the bottom of that creek. And I've also said before that if you have somebody and you put them in water, especially filthy water like Anthony was in, then you're going to wipe away any residue of what you might have been doing or where he might have been found, even microscopic, because there's going to be bacteria-laden clothing all over him. Now, they said that Anthony had some ant bites, but he was generally in really good condition. Sorry, folks. 3 days in that location, there's no way he wouldn't have been found. And unless he would have been in that creek for 3 days, and if he was, he would have been hypothermic because at night it got really cold. If you notice in that picture, this is important. Notice in that picture, that clothing, that sweatshirt really sticks out from the surrounding area. When the helicopter flies by, they can see this sticking out color-wise from the rest of the environment. The idea that Anthony wasn't seen by a helo for the other 3 days in this specific area is not rational. They ran dogs all through this mountainside for days, and they never picked up a scent. Now, he's nonverbal, non-communicative, so he wouldn't have answered if you called his name. But FLIR should have picked him up, canines should have picked him up, ground pounders should have seen him. When Anthony went to the hospital, he should have been dehydrated, because it's a guarantee he wasn't sitting in that creek for 3 days. Like I said, he would have been hypothermic, probably would have died. And there wasn't that much water in that area, except maybe right there, which is odd. There was also a cliff that nobody can understand how he got over or around to get into the position he was in. Yet he's found in a position that was going to be searched and had been searched many times over. Like I've said before, when these people, animals, whatever they are, whenever they are taken, say a cow's taken, they're always put back in a position to be found. Just think Anthony. Now, what was it about Anthony that was unusual? It's autism. Autism is on the rise, but it's an unusual condition in general. I think somebody's interested in our DNA, interested in our way of life, how we're being raised? I don't know. This one really caught my attention quickly. And if I don't jump on something right away, don't get angry, we're analyzing it. And the more time that goes by, there's a better understanding of what really happened. There's a lot of cases we've talked about over the years where, maybe at the end of the day, it looks like possibly the parents did it. But years later, there's never a suspect. The parents are never arrested. In this case, I think there's so much evidence to speak to the fact that it was essentially impossible for somebody, a human being, to abduct Anthony, take him from the scene, hold him for multiple days, and then put him back right in the middle of the search zone. No. The risks would be outrageous, and if you abducted Anthony, why don't you just dump him on the side of the road 20 miles away where cars are going by and they'll find him? Why put him right back in the middle of the search zone? When they said he was in really good condition except for some ant bites, and that's really all they said. Again, a little boy without food, without water for 3 days, good chance they're going to die. Even a little boy at 3 years old without food for without food for 10 days, you're going to die. But somebody who's young like Anthony and who doesn't have the fat layers that some of us have, may not live 10 days. But they said he was in really good condition. They did say he was hungry and he did get something to eat. I think they gave him a banana, they said. So, the electronic issues that happened on that property are interesting to say the least. If the camera would have been low to the ground, I think it probably would have been said that, somebody came by and wiped it clean. But because it was so high up in a tree, it doesn't make sense that anyone could have gotten to it. Plus, how do you log into the cloud and there's a record of that login and wipe it clean and then come out and not having any understanding of who could have done that? Now, Australia has had their share of very strange cases. If you go back on our channel here several weeks, I made a video about an older man and older woman who went camping, and there was a fire right next to their vehicle and their tent burned up. I stated then that the Australian Police Forensics Unit couldn't identify the source or why the fire happened. Very unusual. Australian police are very advanced and they're very competent. To say that they couldn't figure that out got my attention as well. This area where Anthony disappeared, I'm talking about a 100-mile radius from there. I've written about many cases in that region. I don't know why, but that entire east coast of Australia has 99% of the disappearances in that country. Very, very few come from the west coast, Perth. I don't know why. But I'm very, very happy there was a good outcome. There aren't enough good outcomes. Anthony returning, I'm sure his parents just cannot believe it. And I saw the footage of them responding when they heard the news, and probably the best day of their lives. Unfortunately, we won't really ever know what happened. But if you're paying attention to what I do, this case should be a 10x that something really weird happened. I had dozens of people from Australia contact me about this incident. When I was back there on a book tour, I spent a lot of time in the Blue Mountains area, Blue Mountains National Park, with some friends that I made over the internet right here, Patrick and Liz. And they were gracious enough to show Angie and I around that area. And Patrick, I know you watch these things, so thank you. Please give Liz a hug for us. I miss you guys. But I feel like we are your cousins in Australia, or brothers and sisters, and we're all the same. And I care about what you guys are going through, just like you care what we're going through. And I think about all of us around the world that are watching this segment thinking, what in the heck is going on? And you know, I'm glad Anthony was returned. I'll always have questions about what happened while he was gone. What happened to him? Where was the interest, and was he okay? So I appreciate you watching. And this again was just an updated segment, catch you up with what we've done. And I'll do these occasionally just to ensure that we're all tracking the right way. Really appreciate all the kind comments. Last word of the day. In the last couple of weeks, the emails and the notes have increased dramatically. All of them are really, really good, so thanks. But it's gotten to a point where, unfortunately, I won't be able to respond to everyone. I'll eventually read all of them, but I won't be able to respond. There's just no way. It's overwhelming. If that's all I did with my life, I think I probably could, but then I wouldn't do any research, and that wouldn't be my goal here in life. But understand that each one of those messages will be read, and they are important in the grand scheme of things, for sure. And I appreciate them immensely. So don't let that message get out that I don't. So anyhow, if you know a hunter or a hiker that's going out, tell them about a personal locator beacon. And let's hope that YouTube keeps me around another week. Thank you.